You don't know what the apology is for? Or maybe you do, it's kind of all over the internet right now. Even for international fans, you have probably seen these articles on Reddit or Twitter that first of all, there was a little bit of a drama in the DFM, and second of all, that coaches are fired. So that's why I want to make this video. I want to summarize everything from the beginning to the very end, or at least how we are right now, because it's not necessarily over. Let's start at the very beginning. And I'm gonna have chapters down there if you wanna jump to a specific event, but I wanna start at the beginning because I think it's important to feel just the weight of this whole drama. So if you go back in time as early as 2010, as far as I am aware, in 2010 we have the first documented article about none other than Saros, who was at the time playing a game called Steel Battalion. It was like a mega type of game, and he actually won this whole championship in Japan. And one of his best friends was none other than Yutapon. 2010, this is about the time when League of Legends came out, and even though the official Japanese servers were far away, at that time, if someone wanted to play League of Legends in Japan, they just played on the North American server. And two such individuals were Saros and Yutapon. And I'm pretty sure you heard the story a million times. Yutapon was challenger in North America and actually knew a lot of American pros at that time. But these two, and obviously other three members, started their own team called Focus Me. At that time in Japan, there was obviously no LJL and no real officially funded tournament, just very small ones, until 2013, when JCG, Japan Competitive Gaming, started their League of Legends tournament. What's important is that Detonation Focus Me appeared first in this event. And this event appeared first Saros and Yutapon, but in order to get financial support, they partnered with the gaming company Detonation Gaming. If you see people talk about Focus Me, or if people talk about DNG, Detonation Gaming, those basically now mean the same, so much so that Detonation Gaming actually rebranded as a whole to Detonation Focus Me like a year ago. But Detonation Gaming itself was an older organization. In 2012, they started their CS Online team. That's where the organization started. And 2013 was when they acquired Focus Me and started DFM, Detonation Focus Me. I don't want to go too much into the history, what kind of teams were there, what kind of players were there, but just so you know how Yutapon and Saros from Focus Me met with Detonation Gaming and with their CEO, Umezaki Nobuyuki. And this guy, we're gonna talk about him later. We just had to establish them, the longest standing members of DFM. Detonation Gaming, Umezaki, Focus Me, Saros and Yutapon. There you go. Now you understand the beginning. Some other members involved in this drama are obviously Saros. Saros is a player in Japan called the Faker of Japan, up until 2021 when he was replaced by Arya, and in 2022 he officially announced he's retiring as a player and joining DFM's coaching team. Alongside Kazu, another person involved in this drama, he had kind of back and forth history in DFM. As you may know, he's famous for retiring 3 times and coming back 3 times. He had to help out DFM as a support a lot of times. For a few years, he joined Scars and V3 as their support, because Scars used to be in League of Legends, and now they are in VCT Ascension, so everything is interconnected. But what's important to this story, and I'm sorry if I'm going on tangents, I don't have a script, just a bunch of research. After that miraculous MSI run, and again, being able to play for DFM, Kazu as well finally retired and joined DFM as head coach. And another person who is not directly involved in this drama, but it's important to mention him, is Gizmo, DFM's analyst. He's somewhat of a newer member. He used to write analytical articles about LCK and joined DFM in 2019 summer. People usually don't see him because he's not going to international events in person, but he's in the background helping with analytical things, and he's active on Twitter. He's always on fan meets. So he is a well-known member in Japan, but maybe not so much internationally. But let's fast forward to the present, especially when tol2 joined DFM. I'm pretty sure I talked about him in previous videos, but just a very brief recap, he was known as a Draven and Akshan top main. He was AXIZ top laner just a very few games last year. He didn't have a particularly great performance, but then he joined Academy, then he learned new champions, and he looked like a great prospect coming into this year. After the big news of Abby leaving to LEC, he was the one who was asked to be the top laner for this prestigious team. The pressure was understandably very high on him, and as we know from interviews, the team didn't even actually aim to win spring. They wanted to use the split as somewhat of a training arc going into summer. It was around the middle when the team were winning more than they expected, and they decided that they want to win spring and they want to get to MSI. And as you know, this is exactly what happened. Throughout spring, tol2 had very rocky performances, pun intended, because he had a very rocky performance in Malphite at one time. It was memed a lot, and I'm gonna come back here for the signs of what happened later. But at that time, it looked like just fun, just funny content, and the team was heading into MSI. Everyone knows what happened. DFM flopped very, very hard. I made a video about this exact topic called What Went Wrong with DFM. You should check it out if you want to know more. I'm gonna highlight some parts, obviously, because in hindsight it was another sign, but at that time it looked like summer is gonna be fine for this team. Something I wanna say before I'm getting into the actual drama is I'm gonna come back to this later on, but just so you know, there's a little teaser. There was a very infamous interview from Harp. It definitely generated conversations, is what I'm saying. He said, "I don't think I gained anything from this MSI. I need to shake off the pressure I got from international tournaments. More than half of our scrims were decided by top lane. I want less of those." Needless to say, Harp got flagged from Korea, from China, from Japan, from everywhere around the world for this comment. It did not look great by any means, but the whole team was frustrating. There were a lot of issues. Now, on to what happened on July 6th. On July 6th, around night in Japan, tol2 had a chain of tweets that started this whole thing. One of the biggest, if not the biggest, drama in LJL history. On the G-Sport Twitter, I made the summary of all the tweets and basically translated everything else that happened afterwards. But in this video, I want to go through all of them in a chronological order, I can't speak English, and also give as many nuances as possible, give the reactions of the fans, and just what vibes they were getting. So the first tweet said, "Coach Kazu threatened me." He got into how much he was always getting flagged from his coaches, but this time around it was so severe that he was afraid for his life and ran away from the gaming house. This is insane to read. Basically, I read this tweet when I woke up, and my first reaction was just, what? It looked and sounded really, really weird, and unfortunately, as it turns out now, it was all real. tol2 then stated he wants to play the game tomorrow, but he doesn't know how he could return to the gaming house, and that his story for the fan, and he was asking for help. About half an hour later, he had another tweet. In this one, he actually shouts out Yutapon because he was helping him and stopping a fight the day before. He states he has no other allies besides him in the team, and very important, this is where he mentions he was diagnosed with AD, which is adjustment disorder. Oh, okay, I'm gonna need my charger. So yeah, he has AD, he found out about this after spring, and here comes the part that later was proven to be false. In a way, there were some misunderstandings, but I'm gonna translate it now. Just so you know, I'm gonna clarify later on. But tol2 said, allegedly, that he was talking to others, a third party, about his abuse, and because of that, he was fined by Umezaki, the CEO of DFM. Instead, if he talks about it, then he can't play in the LJL anymore. And this is disputed later on, but he said he was cornered by that. Shortly after, or I think immediately after, he also tweeted that since summer, Coach Saros was constantly harassing him. And he had this one story that, again, we're gonna come back later on because it's gonna be a pillar of this whole drama. But at one time when they were walking and there was someone walking their dog, Saros said that, "Hey, that dog is like you and I mixed you two up." Basically calling him a dog. He was asking him to stop with no result. And he also talks about his collapse in London when at one point he couldn't stop crying, and it was only Milan, their sub-AD carry, who helped him, further proving his point that he had no other allies in the team. And this is where he mentions that it was the day before when there was the big fight that he said Yutapon was the one who stopped. And after all of this, he tweeted his last tweet on this account, saying that he couldn't sleep, he feels extremely tired, he's gonna rest, and from now on it's gonna be Pool who's gonna be his agent. And before I talk about Pool, because he's gonna be a very important person going forward, I think it's also important at this point to talk about some signs. Because while these tweets came as a shock to everyone, there were signs that, unfortunately, most of the people, including myself, we just missed. Right before he ran away from the house, he tweeted that Coach Kazu was mandating everyone for 100 solo queue games in 5 days, which is, if you count, that's 20 games per day. And I'm not sure if he was mandating it on the Japanese or the Korean server, but on the Japanese server it's near impossible. The queue times are just insanely long. I'm not even sure there are 100 games in high-elo in 5 days. On the Korean server it's more doable, but still 20 games a day is very much. And while obviously you can say that the Korean pros, the Chinese pros are maybe playing even more, but those are because they want to play, not mandated. Can't recall this many mandated solo queues. There are some for most teams, but it's always less. And he had to stay up after even 4 a.m. to complete this. He was constantly playing 16 games, but after he had to scrim. So because of the scrim, he couldn't complete 20 games the day that he had to. It was a very bad look, and you can see why. It was probably one of the sparks that led to the runaway. But this wasn't the only sign. Going in time backwards, Yutapon was streaming 4 days ago. He's basically the only one who streams from DFM, so that's why his clips are the ones that surfaced. And there were 2 clips in total that surfaced after this whole drama started.
吉田くんのフィードバック聞いてて思うけど、よく手が出ないなって思うね。俺、コーチ絶対向いてないと思う。手が出そうになる。俺がコーチだったらこれやばい、手出ちゃいそうだなって思うような会話してるもん。帰ってくる言葉がすごいんだよね。ちょっとおもろい。なんかずれてる。いつもトルツー君は吉田君に叩かれてます。てめえ、俺何しとんじゃボケっつって。
So while without context you can say it was maybe somewhat joking, now that we know what happened, those are signs that we have not seen. And some other tweets and articles that also surfaced by 5chan, and in case you don't know what 5chan is, it's like 4chan, the original 4chan, which was 2chan, but bulletin board. It's like 4chan and similarly toxic. There is quite a big Twitter fan base. You can see most of the time they're sending in fan arts, but most of the conversations are not happening there. This is just how Japanese Twitter works. In Japan, people don't usually reply to stuff. More often they're quote retweeting or just retweeting, but replying is not really common. All the hardcore fans and the hardcore conversations are happening on 5chan, which is like 4chan, but in Japan. Similarly toxic. And after the news broke, obviously they started digging up old tweets from the coaching staff. One of them was from Gizmo, who since then deleted the tweet for obvious reasons. And also he was someone who, while joking about tol2 for the whole year, he was on his side. So don't take it too seriously, but since the tweet was deleted, it's not a good look. But there's a screenshot, and also you can still see it on the Google cache. Once you post something on the internet, it's gonna stay there forever. Even after our top laner, that's tol2, made a lot of mistakes, he approached us expecting us to praise him, and the 3 coaches, that is Kazu, Saros and Gizmo, perform a jet stream attack on him, and he looked like a dog. Once again, the dog is here. And finally, the last sign, which is an article from April. It is currently the most popular article for a good reason. I'm pretty sure I translated this one because I used to have this MSI website. There it is. It's called tol2's Unknown Side. It's a very long article. I don't want to talk about each point, but it was an interview. Why I can't speak English? It was an interview with Saros where he mainly talked about tol2 and how was it coaching him. And the part that 5chan kept quoting and quoting, Saros also shared that tol2 is someone who can't just sit at his desk. Even when watching matchup videos, he would often show random videos to Saros and ask if he likes them. tol2 can focus during stage games, but he has to work on his focus during scrims. When talking about this to Gizmo, he just said, how can you coach tol2? In short, it was obvious that tol2 had some kind of problem with focus. It was in April, so the diagnosis of AD has not come out yet, but it shows more than anything that they were aware of tol2's special condition, even if the diagnosis itself has not come out just yet. After all of this, I don't know how far we are into this video now, but now let's get into the past 24 hours after the last post came out until DFM's eventual decision. Needless to say, record amount of people were talking about it, so much so that on the 5chan service they're using, LJL and tol2 were trending. This is massive! League of Legends is not that popular in Japan, so the fact that so many people were talking about it shows the weight of this drama. And do you remember tol2's last tweet when he said he was appointing an agent? Now let's talk about him. His name is Pool. He's most well known in Japan as a blogger and making costume games for new League of Legends players, helping them learn the game. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't heard about him before this event. And I think most people are like that. But he sent in fan arts for tol2, so he is probably a friend and fan of him. And this agent, obviously he's not like a real agent, but he was representing tol2 at that time. He had to say the following shortly after the last tweet from tol2. He said that he's gonna be tol2's agent, and because tol2 can't move, he's gonna be the emergency contact of tol2. And he continued saying he knows a lot of fans are worried about tol2, but right now he's resting in an inn. Which is, do you guys know an inn? For a second, I didn't know if it's Japan only, but he was staying in an unknown inn because, as you know, he was literally feared for his life. And he contacted tol2's parents as well as Gizmo, DFM's analyst who we talked about before. And this is why even before the official announcement, people were expecting that Gizmo is probably not part of this drama. Even though he had this very unfortunate tweet, he was never mentioned by tol2, and he was the one who tol2's agent contacted, so people were expecting that he was probably on tol2's side even with all the jokes he made. And 10 minutes later dropped the tweet that probably changed the course of this drama, because in this one the agent stated that they have audio recording of Kazu's threat, as well as medical papers which confirms tol2's AD adjustment disorder. And before you get too excited, they also stated, obviously, that they are not going to release it to the public, only to lawyers and the police. And finally, the last tweet from Pool that night, even though knowing that DFM most likely would not do this, they stated a condition in which tol2 would play the next day. That is, if DFM CEO Umezaki, Coach Kazu, and Coach Saros all left the gaming house, and tol2 is with a guard of his choice. He knew it was not realistic, but finally for the night he said that after tol2 running away, he kept saying how thankful he is for Yutapon for saving him from that fight last night, and how sorry he is for the fans. So now, reactions. You have to understand all of these were developing stories. I haven't slept in like 24 hours. There was something coming out all the time. A tweet here from tol2 or Pool, and in response a lot of dug up streams, a lot of dug up articles or tweets from the coaching staff. So all this that happened up until this point where Pool stated the conditions in which tol2 would play. Let's see how the community reacted. As I showed before, it was a trending topic. If you just look at the scroll bar in 5chan, which basically shows the activity, this is like nothing else I've ever seen ever since I'm covering LJL. You have to understand, because DFM is such a popular team, obviously there are a lot of DFM haters among the very hardcore fans. There were some pretty intense and scary stuff. For example, someone was linking all the contact pages for DFM's biggest sponsors, going as far as someone else literally wrote an email template in which it was explained how the CEO is not handling the situation well and all of tol2's tweets. That's a very bad and scary look. So for all of that, DFM CEO Umezaki had to respond. He started by saying he's sorry for all the worry that this whole situation caused. He's gonna contact tol2 and the coaches and the managers to get all the possible sides of this story. But he also stated there were incorrectness in what tol2 was saying, and an important part that's gonna be addressed further in the announcement. Someone was mentioning that if it's not true that there was a fine for tol2 for contacting someone else about the abuse, he should just outright deny it. And to which Umezaki confirmed that tol2 did get a fine, but it wasn't for contacting others about his harassment. And added, even considering tol2's situation, they lowered the amount of fine that he was getting. We at this point didn't know what the fine was, we didn't know the amount, but it did not look good. 5chan was after Umezaki, and they brought up some nasty things from his background. This is allegedly, guys. Allegedly. Everything I say is allegedly, except what they confirmed. But this is allegedly. Someone said, and got a little bit of attraction, so there was once when someone leaked online, which is like WhatsApp in Japan, someone leaked a line conversation on Twitter about how that person's sugar daddy was Umezaki. To which Umezaki tweeted that basically my lawyer will be in touch. And I just translate what this tweet says. He summoned a Tibers-like lawyer and basically terminated this girl's Twitter account whose sugar daddy was Umezaki. It's getting hot here. And in a response to that, a lot of people came out talking about their bad experiences with other organizations in LJL. 5chan even called it a Me Too event. And all of those tweets are deleted now for obvious reasons, but it was a really intense moment if you're DFM, and especially if you're Umezaki, all of these things surfaced once again. Some people even brought up that the DFM Oshiberibu, which is like a DFM chat club, it's a podcast of DFM. The third episode of that just suddenly disappeared. That was suspect. And even though there was a third episode eventually, it was not what the tweet was teasing, because the third episode was supposed to be with Saros, Gizmo and tol2, and they were asking for questions for the episode. This episode never aired. Another something suspect. A lot of allegations against DFM, a lot of brought up previous dramas against DFM CEO Umezaki. That's a big of, without better words, shit show that was happening. But it is getting late in Japan, and especially in Europe, when I am living currently. So with things starting to calm down, not that many reactions, not that many tweets, I went to sleep just a few hours. But there was a tweet that woke me up at around midnight. My days are kind of screwed at this point. Just a reminder, this is already in morning in Japan, where Pool, again tol2's agent, said that they were talking with DFM CEO Umezaki up until the morning, and he was taking this conversation very seriously. Umezaki said that there's gonna be an official announcement from DFM before noon, and unless something changes, Pool asked everyone to wait for that announcement. After this, once again, a few hours of nothing. But we were getting closer to the matches, and DFM had a match against CGA that day. So just with a few hours left until the matches, people were getting kind of curious what's going to happen. I'm going to talk about the rosters and what's going to be in the future later, but it was 5 a.m. for me. Again, I couldn't sleep too much. That Pool was contacted by Umezaki, and he said that the official DFM announcement is gonna be around 2 to 3 p.m. and that there is no complications about the story itself, but there is paperwork to do, and there are internal methods that they have to follow, so that's why they couldn't post it sooner what they planned. And a little bit later, there is another announcement about the DFM announcement. Oh, that's an announcement of It was a weird time that there's gonna be a delay in the official announcement. It's gonna be after 3 p.m. for sure. I assume because of the paperwork and just clarifying the last pieces of information. But at this point, Pool in his tweets was very obviously saying that they are working together with the DFM CEO Umezaki, and basically all the allegations against him from tol2 were just misunderstandings. From the tone of these tweets, it definitely looked like that they were working together rather than against each other. And even before that, but for me, these are all kind of mixed together because I just woke up, there was an announcement from LJL that they are aware of the situation with tol2, and if it comes to the worst, they're gonna take actions, and if there's gonna be actions, they're gonna have another announcement. But just so you know, according to the rulebook, there is a clause stating about abuse and public harassment as in code in Japan, but in the rulebook they say that depending on how severe these actions are, the punishment can range from just a verbal warning to actually disqualifying DFM from the league and never allowing them back again. So yeah, Riot can do whatever they want. It's Riot, after all. And a few hours later, they had another announcement in which they said that Riot is still investigating the case, but at that time, DFM did submit a valid roster, which as we know now, would never play, but they had a valid roster, so they had the chance to participate. And the AXIZ CEO, actually CEO of AXIZ Entertainment, who was AXIZ, Kobayashi, said that what worries him about esports is that whenever the player has a problem, the player can just blast it out on Twitter. But the team as an organization, their reaction needs to be very calculated. They have to contact various sources for all the pieces of information, and their response takes time, and meanwhile all the fans are just gonna blast the team probably, which is, I have to say, it's a valid criticism. But even if it's valid for most people, just from the sheer amount of stuff that came out from CEO Umezaki, it was very hard to swallow. But I wanted to include this tweet because it is true. Teams do need time. They can't just put out something without contacting all the sources. It was a messy situation. And meanwhile, DFM also had a tweet where they originally tweeted out they're sorry for all the worries that tol2's comments on Twitter made. And they are currently investigating this case, and they're going to make an announcement later. And I have to say, pretty good reply from Pool. He said that no, it's not about what tol2 tweeted, it's what's happening in your team. Yeah, it's like the problem is not what he tweeted, the problem is if it's true. It's small, but it was enough for them to edit the tweet, and now they just said that they're aware of the situation and there's gonna be an announcement later. Okay, where we are right now, I am also starting to lose it. Okay, yes. So this was right before LJL starts. The first match was V3 versus Burning Core. So DFM still had a few hours to figure it out, but Poo tweeted that he, and I assume tol2 as well, agree what's gonna be in the official announcement from DFM, because obviously they were working together and he probably have seen it already, and that he's gonna have more tweets once the announcement is public. And he actually thanked CEO Umezaki that he stayed up all night and worked together to solve this issue, and that announcement is gonna be at 5 p.m, which is like few minutes away at this point. And about that whole fine thing, I already mentioned before that there was some misunderstanding about that, and it was clarified by CEO Umezaki, and Paul agreed to it. So I would say this is actually what happened. It was a miscommunication. About the fine, it wasn't because tol2 asked someone else to help with his abuse, but it was because he leaked his contract that he signed with this said third party. And we're going to talk about it because official announcement is going to mention it too. And as I said, since LJL was already on, I was watching co-streamer Takaya, and he was not afraid of Riot. He was talking about this drama very extensively. And as you can imagine, chat was in emote-only mode, because one of the main points of the tol2 tweets was that Saros called him a dog, and Gizmo also called him a dog in another tweet. In an emote-only mode, the dog emotes have been popping up. What did you expect from Twitch chat? And they have started banning all the dog emotes, to which Twitch chat had a response. They just started spamming cats instead. Sometimes Twitch chat actually just amazed me. If they would use their problem-solving capabilities somewhere else, they could cure cancer or something. There are a lot of things you can express with only emotes. Well, let's talk about the announcement. So DFM finally, just when LJL started, made an announcement. I made a summary on the G-Sport Hub Twitter, but let's just go through it because that's the pinnacle of the whole drama. So there are a lot of points addressing all the allegations made during this 24 hours. First of all, about the threats made against tol2. And I would try to start with, after all the information coming into DFM, they have confirmed that what Coach Kazu and Coach Saros said can be considered as threats. DFM said that as of June, they were aware that tol2 has communication problems and they wanted to accommodate him according to that. Because of that, they assigned Gizmo, their analyst, to help him. But even after all of that, tol2 could not improve as much as they wanted, and the punishments are gonna be later. But the next topic is about the fine, and this is where it gets a little more iffy. Some people would say that this is just a loophole that they used, but since Pool himself said that they are fine with this and this was just a miscommunication, I would give them the benefit of the doubt. Since the fine wasn't because he contacted someone about his abuse, but that he leaked his contract to third parties. At Detonation, which is the parent company of Detonation Focused Me, CEO Umezaki and tol2 had a contract with tol2 signed, and in 2023 June it was discovered that tol2 has disclosed this contract to a third party, which is in violation of the contract and it's a breach of contract. And usually the fine for breach of contract is 300,000 yen, which is about $2,000. But because Umezaki recognized the unique situation, he lowered this amount. Then they addressed that the confusion came from Umezaki using the word fine, where Japanese has another word, iakukin, especially for fine for breach of contract. So because he didn't use this word, it became kind of muddy, but it seems like it was actually just a miscommunication. And DFM said that because they don't think there was ill intent in tol2's tweets about the fines, that's why they won't advance this case further and not gonna sue tol2 for misinformation. And finally, the last point to address is about tol2's AD adjustment disorder. And this is something that fans kind of had problems with, because in the announcement it was said that up until 2023 May, the team did not have idea about tol2's AD, and this honestly kind of reminds me of the Dennis situation at EG, I guess you guys are familiar with that one, because we know that the official diagnosis of the condition came around May, June. Still, there were articles from April when they were explicitly talking about how tol2 can't really concentrate on things, can't really focus. So while obviously they are not doctors, obviously don't do diagnosis without an actual doctor, they were definitely aware that at least something is going on. Yeah, it's kind of iffy. Some fans have problem with that segment. Let's just hope that in the future it's gonna be better, because DFM said that after this case they're gonna put more effort into mental health care and they're gonna put systems in place to help if there is something like this in the future and to prevent something like this ever happening in the future. And now finally, the biggest part of the announcement, the punishments, the response to this whole case. As for the involved head coach Kazu and coach Saros, their contracts have been terminated the exact same day. As for DFM CEO Umezaki, at a later date he will have a meeting with the DFM board where I would assume his future is going to be decided. And looking at past incidents, look just EG or TSM, I would assume he's gonna stay at the company. About tol2, they're still discussing alongside the third party what's his future gonna be, but DFM is fully supporting tol2 in his future. And about how DFM's future in the LJL is gonna be is being discussed with all the players, including tol2 and the league itself. After this, the last segment is about what Detonation, the parent company, is gonna do in the future about similar harassments against their players. They're obviously apologizing to everyone involved, especially tol2, and they're promising that in the future they're gonna put systems in place, as I said before. I really hope that they're gonna have systems for this in the future, but I wanna see it. I want to see it first. Back to the announcement, they're going to continue receiving feedback from inside and outside of the company. I would assume about how they would establish these systems. And they're obviously asking everyone to not harass others about the situation on social media and just stop the speculations. And finally, that this text was made in collaboration with tol2 and more specifically his agent. So that's for the whole announcement. Some things after, as Pooh said before, he tweeted some things after the announcement as well. He said he knows that a lot of fans are worried about tol2, but he finally had a very long sleep, and even though this case is far from over, he is getting back his energy and he is doing better. And a really important tweet, which is I think really good, is that tol2 does have a lawyer, so he's gonna be represented by an actual lawyer for this whole case. And understandably, obviously, the lawyer told him not to use social media until the case is over, and also the lawyer's words. At this point, as long as the talks with DFM are going well, they are not gonna file a police report. But if DFM becomes uncooperative or something is not going how they want, they can file a police report. Remember, they have the audio recording. However, the lawyer told DFM that due to the situation, it's inevitable that there's going to be a lawsuit against the two former coaches. And just mentioning the reason that they brought it to public on tweets, because they thought it is important for the protection of tol2 that this whole thing is public. And in the end, Pooh said that he took over as tol2's agent because he is his friend, and until there was an actual lawyer handling the case, he was basically the only one who could do it for him. He was very tired and he understands that people didn't know him, so they were doubtful how he is the one representing tol2. He was apologizing for fans who were worried about this whole situation, and that basically he's gonna take a break from Twitter as well. As I mentioned a while ago, actually a lot of time ago, I don't know how long this video is gonna be, but Gizmo hasn't tweeted. He deleted some of those questionable tweets from the past. The only one who tweeted was Saros. He said that he sincerely want to apologize because he went too far, and he is truly sorry for tol2, on the fans, and everyone involved. As for Kazu, he didn't tweet anything, but this is to be expected. I'm pretty sure Kazu has a lawyer as well who advised him not to tweet anything. And finally, very finally, I mentioned this is probably the biggest LJL drama ever, but if not the biggest, definitely in the top 2, because I can't make this video without mentioning PENTAGRAM, or previously known as Rampage. In 2007, when they were still running as Rampage, one of the most prestigious organizations in LJL at that time, the team took away the resident cards of the Korean imports. And what you should know about Japan is if you're a foreigner, you have to have your card always on you, because if you're in the check and you don't have your card, you can go to jail. So this literally meant that the team imprisoned the Korean imports into the gaming house. And when Riot found out about it in 2018, they banned the manager and general manager from any activities for 3 months. And why am I saying this? Is because in 2018, after this whole fiasco, Riot Games, or LJL, so Riot Japan to be specific, they have established a compliance hotline for all players for situations like this when their rights are violated by the team itself. It was in 2018, remember? So understandably, Gariaru, who was a previous player and well-known personality in Japan, Gariaru quote retweeted this announcement from 2018 and raised the question that he remembers it being a thing, but it doesn't seem like it is anymore, not understanding what happens. To which Akadera responded, who was running the LJL hotline, that I missed the LJL hotline, and after I left, no one took over from me. Replying to that, Gariaru recalled when Akadera and Dion were at the gaming house handing out their business cards. And finally, Akadera's little anecdote to this story. Some of the players who they handed out their business cards literally just origamied it and put it in front of them. So I think I covered everything possible at this point. Unfortunately, the situation seems dire, and as you can see, the situation was even more dire back then. And just like with the AXIZ drama, because there are a lot of parallels to be taken, it's very hard to imagine that they didn't realize tol2 had special conditions to work with when they literally had an article talking about these in April. There are a lot of very iffy things in the situation, and obviously we will never really know if it was just not caring or actually malice. I don't want to assume anything, and the case is far from over actually. There's still gonna be hearings with Umezaki, there's gonna be lawsuits, as the lawyer said. All I can say is that it was a very, very sad situation. It was very sad for me to see last year when it happened to AXIZ, one of my favorite teams at that time. And it was very sad for me to see in Japan as well, with one of the most prestigious Japanese teams. I could say the obvious, that it's always better to prevent these things rather than reacting to these things. But it all happened and we can't change the past to our current knowledge. So going forward, something that I really hope for is that those systems are gonna work and they're actually gonna put them in place. And I know it's shocking to a lot of people that, oh my god, it happened to DFM, the biggest organization. But I read this on 5chan, which is really weird to see such a nuanced opinion on 5chan. But someone said there that the reason it happened is because DFM is an old team. Staros and Yutapon has been a part of it since basically the beginning. Kazu wasn't there from the beginning and he had his little ventures to other teams, but he was a staple member of DFM, no doubt. And up until last year, they had Abby, a very veteran player. They had Steel, another veteran player. They have Ori and Harp, who are maybe just those personalities who like to grind it out. So DFM had this very old system with, for most of the time, the same people. Whenever someone new comes in with their personality, and especially if they are dealing with anxiety, AD, or any kind of condition, sometimes these people who have been in this team for so long just can't adapt to new people, which is really bad, since in League of Legends especially, people don't play forever. There's gonna be new people coming in, so unless the team changes, they are gonna fail eventually. So I really hope this is gonna be a lesson for all the teams, and they are gonna revisit their system. They're gonna making sure that if a new person comes in who has their own condition, that person is gonna feel comfortable, if that person is gonna have their full potential in that team. And lastly, and I think I said lastly like 5 times already, I just want to say that DFM is fast in this one. I want to give credit where credit is due. It was in 24 hours from the moment it all became public and when they had an announcement. And having this parallel with Northampton, who just this week had similar drama in the Valorant scene, where one of his players was racist and his contract was terminated in like a day or 2 days. So to end this video, finally, on a positive note, it's good to see that teams are actually getting faster in recognizing these mistakes. Back in the days, or with some other companies, it could take weeks, if not months, to finally have a conclusion. And we had 2 cases right now, one from Valorant, one from League of Legends, where the decision was made in a matter of days. So as much as it hurts, and probably in the short term bad for the LJL, I think it's definitely the right path in the long run, and eventually, maybe we're gonna have a better scene in general. That was everything, and I remember I forgot something. I told you it's a long video, but what now? First of all, DFM should have had a match today against Crest Gaming Act, but because everything happened, they have forfeited that match, and because of that, CJ was granted a 2-0 victory. And I don't know what's gonna happen on Sunday, because DFM is gonna have a match against V3. If I had to guess, the most probable outcome is we're gonna have Gizmo as head coach, we're gonna have Yutapon as a top laner, and we're gonna have Milan, their academy AD carry, as AD carry. Even last year, when Abby was sick, this is the formation they were in. Yutapon actually used to play top lane, so it's not out of the field that he's playing top lane. And in solo queue, he literally plays half bot lane, half top lane, usually even before this drama. His name is literally top AD LeBlanc main. And as I said in his OPGG, he plays like half-time top lane, half-time bot lane. Ever since this whole drama started, he has one single game which is the top lane Renekton. So take it as it is. Is one game confirmation that he's gonna play top lane? I don't know. But he has done it before, so this is the most probable scenario. I don't think DFM is gonna be disqualified from LJL. I don't think DFM is gonna win either. I think we're gonna see Sengaku and the Hawks in the finals. I know it's a hot take. Actually, maybe Fennel as well. There are a lot of dark horses this year. Honestly, just hope the best for the players, because this is a horrible situation for tol2, and as well as for all the DFM members who just wanna win, who just wanna play. I hope for the best, and I don't know what the best is. It's a very long video. I don't know how to finish it. First of all, thank you for watching it, because it was long and it wasn't scripted by any means, so probably had a lot of tangents. I hope this drama didn't deter anyone from the LJL. I truly love this league, and I think there are a lot of amazing personalities, a lot of amazing games that to be played still. So please watch the LJL, not just for the drama, but for the good moments as well. But with all that being said, it's important to talk about the bad things too. It's important to highlight these incidents so they never ever happen in the future. Thank you for staying with me. I don't even remember when I slept more than 2 hours. So I'm gonna edit this video and then have a great sleep. Whenever there's gonna be any advancement in this case, I'm gonna post about this on Twitter, G Sport Hub, follow it. And also we are now on Threads as well. So G Sport Hub on Threads too. If there is anything about DFM, I'm gonna translate and post it. But for now, please just be good to each other. Please. See you in the next video. Bye bye.